In this video, just for fun, we're going to go back to 1997 and take a look at Borland Delphi 3. This was a software application that you would use to write other software applications, and it used the Pascal language, or specifically Object Pascal, which was sort of an object-oriented variation of Pascal. I first started using Delphi in about 1996 with version 2. And actually wrote real applications with it. The main competitor to Delphi was Microsoft's Visual Basic, and really Delphi was much superior to Visual Basic, and I'll try and go into some of the reasons why that was. I managed to get my version of Delphi installed on Windows 11 somehow. It wasn't easy. I think I just copied the files over from the CD. The installer actually did not work. And the first thing you might notice is sort of an odd arrangement of windows where there's just basically a ribbon bar and an object inspector and nothing in the background. Along the ribbon bar, we have the various tools and bits that you can use to build your application by basically dragging and dropping them onto the form. If you are at all familiar with .NET WinForms, this is going to look very similar, and that's not entirely by coincidence. Delphi gave birth to .NET in a way. The developers for Delphi went over to Microsoft, at least some of them, and began working on the .NET. Here I've started a new application. I just went to the File menu and selected New Application, and I have a form, and I have the source code that goes with the form. If I want to do something like add a button, I can go to Standard, and you double click on it to add the button, double click the button to add the command handler. It would be nice to make the command handler actually do something, but I really don't remember any of the language. Since I don't remember anything, I went and opened an older application that I had written. This is a program that I use to track sales. Borland Delphi came with a couple different database options. Borland had acquired DBase, and they also had their own database, Paradox, and so you could use either one of those. I believe Paradox was a little bit more supported. So this was a Paradox database application, I believe, and here these little icons are my database tables. Here under the project manager I had various forms, new customer. It could not initialize the Borland database engine because the Borland database engine does not run on Windows 11, or I don't have it installed at least. I don't think you can install it on Windows 11. But there's what the customer information form looked like. Going to get a lot of errors. There was a nice data grid that displayed your database data. Wow, the interface seems kind of cumbersome by today's standards, but back then this thing was really superior to Visual Basic. Up here on the toolbar, you had all your components, as I said. One of the strengths of Delphi was that you had third-party companies producing components that you could add into Delphi, maybe like a pie graph or some other kind of component. And they did support ActiveX control, so it could be an ActiveX and it could just be a Delphi component. One of the colossal mistakes that Borland made with Delphi was that in upgrading Delphi, you did not have the ability to import older components. And so if you had third-party components, they would not work in the upgrade. I don't know that was true across all the upgrades, but this is how I remember it. And this was really one of the reasons that I think I moved away from Delphi and went to other applications, which at the time I think I went to C++ and MFC applications, which were much more complicated, more difficult to develop, but much more flexible. Anyway, that was one of the problems, is when you upgraded Delphi, you did not have the ability to automatically upgrade all of the components that you bought from third parties. So you'd have to buy new components from the third parties, and maybe they didn't have them. So you might lose that particular bit of functionality. That is a colossal mistake for a software company to make. I'm not sure that I ever actually completed this application, at least. Anyway, here you can take a look at some of the code, Object Pascal code. I used to know Pascal pretty well. Don't remember much of any of it anymore. Curiously enough, Pascal was the #1 programming language from about 1980 to 1985. So it was really kind of the Python of its day. I didn't do a lot of research for this video. You can look up anything you want if you want to find out more information. I was just kind of whipping it together for fun. Just take a look back. I am pretty sure that Delphi at one point in its lifetime tried to become a cross-platform application development tool so that you could write for other operating systems all within the same code. And it also had a companion for C++ called C++ Builder, which was really very similar, except that the language was C++. I'm pretty sure Borland Delphi still exists, although it's evolved significantly since what you see here. You certainly would not want to use Borland Delphi 3 to develop any software applications now, but the current versions of Delphi might be a fine product. I haven't worked with it in 20 years. Kind of curiously, one of the companies I worked at about 12 years ago still had a core piece of their code in Borland Delphi from an earlier version. As I remember it, Borland Delphi 7 was sort of their best ever release and was actually quite popular. It was after version 7, I think, that things started to go downhill. If you've worked with Delphi or have some experience with it or have opinions on it, throw some in the comments. I'd be curious to read. But I hope you enjoyed the video.